I'd like to add a thought to my series on why the Bible is bad, and my thought is related to Nietzsche's book, The Antichrist. Now, don't panic. I'm not advocating Nietzsche's Antichrist. When it comes to Nietzsche, I can only read him in small doses. He's a very grouchy man. It comes across in his writing. Evidently he had health problems, and I think those health problems may have influenced the way he expresses himself. What I wanted to, Nietzsche makes some interesting observations, energetic observations in this book about Christianity and Judaism, the Judeo-Christian tradition. Obviously he has a negative take on it. But some of his observations may be worthy of consideration, and I want to criticize one of his observations here in The Antichrist, divided into little chapters. Number 33, Nietzsche says, and I quote, "In the whole psychology of the Gospels, the concepts of guilt and punishment are lacking, and so is that of reward." Now, just taken out of context, that sentence makes no good sense. I'm going to continue and read the next couple of sentences to give you a little more context, and I'm going to go back and criticize what he's saying. So let me read the whole paragraph, this opening paragraph of the number 33 in The Antichrist. Nietzsche says, "In the whole psychology of the Gospels, the concepts of guilt and punishment are lacking, and so is that of reward. Sin, which means anything that puts a distance between God and man, is abolished. This is precisely the glad tidings. Eternal bliss is not merely promised, nor is it bound up with conditions. It is conceived as the only reality. What remains consists merely of signs useful in speaking of it." I disagree with Nietzsche, and I think just for obvious reasons. You open up the Bible, and you open up the New Testament, you open up the first Gospel, the Gospel of Matthew, practically on page 2, so to speak, not exactly the second page. You start reading, the Sermon on the Mount, and the concepts of guilt and punishment are lacking? Guilt lacking in the Gospels? I don't think so, Nietzsche. I get the notion of the glad tidings taking away the sin. But the concept of guilt, what could inspire more guilt than sinful thoughts, that your thoughts are sinful, never mind actions. Remember the passage when Jesus explains how if you, never mind, I'm paraphrasing, never mind if you actually, didn't have a relationship, an adulterous relationship, if you even thought of having an adulterous relationship, that's sin. So Jesus becomes like the thought police. I had a sinful thought. What philosophy, what teaching, what moral teaching could be more guilt-ridden than that? Never mind that my actions are in line with the moral teachings. If my thoughts, if I'm having a sinful thought, I'm a sinner. Jesus wants to blur or deny the distinction between the idea and the actuality. And in a way, this parallels the blurring of the distinctions in the Bible between metaphor and fact. This can be a great mistake. There's a big difference, maybe even an infinite difference between idea and actuality. Now, it can be argued, there is a strong connection, a strong influence between ideas and actions. There is an argument for that, and I'm not saying that there's no value in this idea that Jesus is putting forward, but on a cautionary note, I'm pointing out that this idea of denying the distinction between idea and actuality, it can be very problematic. And it can be part of the psychological process that I've mentioned repeatedly, a conditioning process, breaking someone down psychologically to the point where they become very suggestible and malleable, and conditioned. The idea of the sinful thought, the thought police, a moral teaching that would convict you of thought crimes. I think of Freud's superego looking down on the ego and shaking his head, "You naughty boy." Yeah, very guilt-ridden. So Nietzsche just wanted to make that little point about Nietzsche's observation in the Antichrist. Yeah, the idea in the whole psychology of the Gospels, the concepts of guilt and punishment are lacking. No, Nietzsche. Sorry, I disagree.